A 55-year-old nurse has quietly sacrificed 10 Christmases so others could go home to their families. On one fateful night at the hospital, she saves a young man's life. But then that very same young man uncovers a heartbreaking truth. The woman who saved him is slowly sinking into loneliness, forgotten by the son who hasn't come home in 4 years. And from that moment on he makes a decision that changes everything, and what follows may just break your heart. Before we continue, tell us what time it is and where you're watching from, subscribe and hype because tomorrow I've got something extra special for you. The morning of December 23rd arrived cold and gray in Cleveland. Linda Washington stood in the nurse's break room at Memorial Hospital, her hands wrapped around a cup of coffee that had long since gone cold. She was 55 years old, though some days she felt ancient. Her dark hair, streaked with silver she no longer bothered to hide, was pulled back in the same neat bun she'd worn for decades. Everything about Linda Washington was precise, professional, put together. Everything except the tiredness in her eyes. Linda, she turned to find Sarah Mitchell in the doorway, 26 years old with nervous hands that twisted together. Sarah had only been working at Memorial for 8 months, still fresh enough that holidays felt sacred. "What is it, sweetheart?" Linda set down her coffee and smiled, warm, motherly, giving nothing away. Sarah stepped forward, guilt written across her face. "I have the biggest favor to ask, and I know it's terrible timing, but my husband's family is all in Pennsylvania, and this is our first Christmas as a married couple, and his grandmother is 93. You need someone to cover your Christmas Eve shift," Linda finished gently. Sarah's face crumpled with relief and shame. "I'm so sorry, I know you probably have plans with your family too." Linda raised a hand, that smile never wavering. "Go home to your family, Sarah. That's where you need to be." "Really? You're sure?" "I'm sure." Linda patted the young woman's arm. "Go be with your husband's grandmother, make memories while you can." Sarah threw her arms around Linda in an impulsive hug. "Thank you so much, you're amazing, Linda. Just bring me pictures when you get back." Linda carefully extracted herself. "I want to see that smile on your face when you're surrounded by family." After Sarah left, practically floating with gratitude, Linda stood alone in the break room. Through the window she could see the city spread out below, Christmas decorations hung on streetlights, wreaths on doors. This is her 10th Christmas working the night shift. The memory rose unbidden. 10 years ago she'd taken her first Christmas Eve shift. Marcus was 18 at the time, and was living with his grandmother Grace. Linda's husband David had been gone for 10 years by that point, killed in a warehouse fire that took 5 firefighters in but only brought 3 out. That first Christmas after David died, Linda had tried to keep everything normal. Decorated the tree, bought presents, cooked a ham. But when she sat down at the dinner table with little Marcus, all she saw was an empty chair. Marcus had seen it too. He'd barely eaten, just pushed food around his plate. The following year, when Marcus was away at school, and a co-worker asked if anyone could cover the holiday shift, Linda volunteered. It was more comfortable being in the hospital, where she was needed, than sitting at home, alone. And it became a habit. Every year some younger nurse would need the shift, and every year Linda would say yes with that same warm smile. The door opened. Dr. Patricia Reynolds walked in, 62 years old with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "I just saw Sarah practically skipping down the hallway," Dr. Reynolds said. "Let me guess, you took her Christmas shift." Linda shrugged. "She's newlywed. First Christmas with her husband's family." "And you?" Dr. Reynolds studied Linda carefully. "What about your Christmas, Linda?" "I'll have Christmas. Marcus and I will FaceTime in the morning." "FaceTime?" Dr. Reynolds shook her head. "You've given this hospital more than anyone, Linda. 10 years of holidays, double shifts when we're short-staffed, training every new nurse. When will you give yourself a Christmas?" Linda busied herself rinsing her cup. "I like working the holidays, Patricia. It gives me purpose." "You're one of the best nurses I've ever worked with," Dr. Reynolds said quietly. "But you're also one of the saddest people I know." Linda's hands stilled. For just a moment her mask slipped. Then she straightened, and gave Dr. Reynolds that professional smile. "I'm fine, really." Dr. Reynolds' pager went off. She glanced at it, sighed, and headed for the door. "Think about what I said, Linda. You deserve more than this." When she was gone, Linda pulled out her phone. The screen showed Marcus from 4 years ago, the last time he'd been home. Tall and handsome at 32, looking so much like his father. She opened their text thread. The last message was from 3 days ago. Linda, hi baby, how's your week going? Love you. Marcus, busy week mom. Talk soon. She started typing a new message, then stopped, deleted it. He was busy. He didn't need his mother bothering him. Instead, she scrolled through old photos. Marcus at 8, gap-toothed, holding a science fair trophy. Marcus at 13, awkward in his first suit at his father's funeral. Marcus at 18, crying with joy over his MIT acceptance letter. Marcus at 22, graduation day, his arm around her shoulders. That was the last photo where he looked truly present. After that, the photos became sparse. A few snapshots during brief visits, screenshots from FaceTime calls, Marcus always with his laptop visible, always slightly distracted. Her phone rang. Marcus's name flashed on the screen. Linda's heart leapt. Marcus, hi baby, hey mom. His voice sounded tired. She could hear keyboard clicking. Sorry I haven't called back. It's been crazy at work. I understand, sweetheart. How are you? Are you eating enough? I'm fine, mom. Listen, I can't talk long, but, he paused. I'm not going to be able to make it home for Christmas. She closed her eyes. Of course he wasn't. He hadn't come home for Christmas in 4 years. Why would this year be different? Oh, she said softly. There's this huge project, deadline on the 26th. The whole team is working through the holiday. This could be really big for my career, mom. Like promotion level big. I understand. Her voice stayed steady even as something inside her cracked a little more. Your work is important, Marcus. I'm so proud of everything you're doing. You're sure you're okay with it? Relief flooded his voice, like he'd been bracing for her to object. I know I haven't been home in a while. A while, she thought. 4 years is a while. I'm sure, baby, she said instead. We'll FaceTime on Christmas morning, okay? Yeah, definitely. I'll set an alarm. More keyboard clicking. I gotta jump on a call, mom. Love you. I love you too, sweetheart. So much. But he'd already hung up. Linda sat holding the phone, staring at the blank screen. Around her, the hospital hummed. Monitors beeping, intercoms crackling. These sounds had become more familiar than the silence of her own home. 4 years, 4 Christmases, 4 Thanksgivings, 4 birthdays spent alone. At 6 o'clock, her shift over, Linda drove to her mother's house. Grace Washington was 78 years old, living in the same small house where Linda had grown up. She opened the door before Linda could knock. He's not coming home, Grace said, reading her daughter's face. Linda stepped inside, and only then did she let her shoulders slump. Big project at work. I told him it was fine. Grace pulled her into a hug. Linda stood stiff at first, then melted into her mother's arms. Baby girl, Grace said softly. You can't keep doing this. Working every Christmas, living alone in that empty house, waiting for phone calls that don't come often enough. I'm fine, mama. Linda pulled back, wiping her eyes. At least at the hospital, I'm helping people. I'm needed there. You're needed here too, by me, by Marcus, even if that boy's too caught up in his Silicon Valley life to see it. Grace led her to the kitchen table. 4 years, Linda. 4 years since he's come home. When are you going to tell him the truth? That you're lonely, that you miss him? I can't do that to him. He's finally living his dream, mama. Making good money, doing work that matters. I won't be the mother who guilts him into coming home. It's not guilt, baby, it's love. There's a difference. Linda looked at her worn hands. David used to say that love means letting go, letting Marcus fly. David also said love means showing up, being present. Grace squeezed her daughter's hand. Your husband would not want you living like this, baby, working yourself to the bone, going home to an empty house every night, pretending you're fine when you're breaking apart inside. They sat in silence. Outside, Christmas lights twinkled cheerfully. Inside, Linda felt despair settling over her shoulders. I should go, she finally said. Long day tomorrow, and I need to get ready for the Christmas Eve shift. Grace caught her hand at the door. Promise me something. What, mama? Promise me you'll start living your life, not just existing, living. Linda kissed her mother's cheek. I promise I'll try. But they both knew it was a lie. At home, Linda's house stood dark and silent. She unlocked the door and stepped into the cold stillness. The living room held furniture she barely used. The dining room table hadn't been set for a meal in months. She climbed the stairs and opened her closet. On the top shelf sat a box with a Christmas sweater inside, red and green, with a ridiculous reindeer on the front. Marcus had given it to her 14 years ago, when he was 18, right before he left for MIT. "So you'll have something festive to wear," he'd said, grinning. She'd never worn it. The tags were still on. Linda ran her fingers over the soft fabric, remembering Marcus's young, hopeful face. That boy felt like someone from another lifetime. She put the box back and changed into her pajamas. Tomorrow she'd work her regular shift. Christmas Eve she'd work through the night, while everyone else went home to their families. And Christmas morning, she'd FaceTime with Marcus for maybe 10 minutes, and she'd smile through all of it, because that's what she did. Linda turned off the light and lay in the darkness, listening to the silence. The heating system clicked on. A car drove past outside. The refrigerator hummed. She closed her eyes and thought about the hospital, where at least the silence was filled with purpose, where at least she mattered to someone, where at least she wasn't so completely devastatingly alone. Christmas Eve arrived with snow. By 9 o'clock that night, a thin layer of white covered the streets of Cleveland, turning the city into something almost magical. Inside Memorial Hospital's emergency department, Linda Washington stood at the nurse's station, watching the flakes drift past the windows. The department was quiet, unusually quiet for a holiday. Most people were home with their families, gathered around dinner tables and Christmas trees. The skeleton crew working tonight, Linda, Dr. Reynolds, 2 other nurses and 1 resident, had been grateful for the peace. "Linda, you outdid yourself again." Tom Bradley, the night security guard, stood in the doorway holding a plate piled high with food. He was 45 years old, built like a linebacker, with kind eyes and a smile that could light up a room. Linda had brought in a full spread: baked ham, macaroni and cheese, green beans, dinner rolls, even a pecan pie. It sat on the break room table like a feast. "You made enough food for 20 people, Tom said, shaking his head. "There's only 5 of us here." Linda smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "Old habit. I used to cook for 3. Tom's expression softened. He'd worked at Memorial long enough to know Linda's story. "Well, it's delicious, thank you." After he left, Linda stood alone at the station. She'd spent the afternoon cooking, the way she used to when David and Marcus were home. Muscle memory, she supposed. Her hands knew what to do, even when her heart had forgotten why. She glanced at her phone. 9:15. Marcus had promised to FaceTime in the morning, but she'd sent him a Merry Christmas Eve text 3 hours ago. No response yet. Dr. Reynolds emerged from the break room, wiping her hands on a napkin. "That ham was perfection, Linda. You should open a restaurant." "Maybe in my retirement," Linda said lightly. Speaking of which, the emergency line rang, cutting her off. Linda grabbed it. "Memorial Hospital emergency. This is Nurse Washington. We've got a bad MVA on I-90. The dispatcher's voice crackled. "Single vehicle, high-speed impact. Male, late 20s, critical condition. ETA 4 minutes. Linda's training kicked in immediately. "We're ready." "What's his status?" "Unconscious, significant head trauma, suspected internal bleeding. Vitals are dropping." Linda hung up and hit the intercom. "All emergency staff to Trauma 1. MVA incoming, 4 minutes. The quiet hospital transformed instantly. Dr. Reynolds ran for the trauma bay. The other nurses began prepping equipment. The resident appeared, pulling on fresh gloves. Linda moved through the chaos with practiced calm, checking supplies, preparing the crash cart, her hands steady even as adrenaline flooded her system. This was what she was good at. This was where she belonged. 3 minutes later, the ambulance doors burst open. The paramedics wheeled in a gurney, moving fast. On it lay a young man, maybe 28 or 29, wearing what had once been an expensive suit. His face was covered in blood, his breathing shallow and labored. Ethan Brooks, 28 years old, the lead paramedic rattled off as they transferred him to the trauma bed. T-boned a concrete barrier, at approximately 60 miles per hour, lost consciousness at the scene. BP is 80/50 and dropping. Pulse is 120 and thready. Linda was already cutting away his clothes, her scissors moving with precision. Blood soaked through his shirt, too much blood. "Suspected internal bleeding," she said calmly. We need to get him to surgery." Dr. Reynolds bent over the patient, her face grave. "Pupils are unequal and sluggish, significant head trauma. Get me a CT scan stat." "We don't have time," the resident said, staring at the monitors, his pressures dropping too fast. Linda looked at the young man's face, even covered in blood and bruises. She could see he'd been handsome. Someone's son, maybe someone's husband, definitely someone who mattered to somebody. On the gurney beside him, his personal effects sat in a clear plastic bag. A wallet, a cell phone with a cracked screen. The phone's wallpaper was visible, a family photo. An older couple with their arms around this young man, all three of them smiling at the beach, somewhere warm and sunny. Someone was waiting for him to come home. "Let's move," Dr. Reynolds shouted. The next 45 minutes became a blur of organized chaos. They rushed Ethan to surgery. Dr. Reynolds operated while Linda assisted, her hands moving with the certainty of 3 decades of experience. The damage was extensive: ruptured spleen, lacerated liver, 3 broken ribs, and the head trauma, significant swelling that made everyone in the OR exchange worried glances. Then 20 minutes into surgery, the monitors started screaming. "He's crashing," the resident yelled. "V-fib," Linda called out, already reaching for the defibrillator paddles. Ethan's heart had stopped, charging to 200, Dr. Reynolds said, her voice tight. "Clear." Linda stepped back. The young man's body jerked as the electricity shot through him. "Nothing." Again, Dr. Reynolds ordered. "Charging to 300. Clear." Another shock. Still nothing. The monitor showed a flat line, that terrible steady tone that meant death. "Damn it," Dr. Reynolds muttered. She looked at the clock on the wall, preparing to call time of death. "No." Linda's voice was quiet, but firm. Dr. Reynolds looked at her. "Linda, not on my watch." Linda moved to the table and placed her hands on Ethan's chest. "Not on Christmas." She began CPR, pushing down hard and fast, counting in her head. Sweat beaded on her forehead. Her arms burned. But she didn't stop. "Linda, it's been 3 minutes," Dr. Reynolds said gently. Linda kept going. Push, push, push. 30 compressions. Her world narrowed to just this. Keeping blood flowing. Keeping this young man's brain alive, refusing to let him die on Christmas Eve while his family waited somewhere for him to come home. "Linda, 1 more minute," Linda gasped. Her arms were shaking now, her whole body trembling with effort. "Please, just 1 more minute." Dr. Reynolds nodded. Linda kept pushing, her vision blurred. Her hands were cramping, but in her mind, she saw that phone wallpaper, the family on the beach, smiling. She saw her own son's face. She saw every Christmas she'd worked, every patient she'd fought for, every reason she'd chosen this life of service. "Not tonight," she whispered. "Not tonight." And then a blip on the monitor. Then another. "We've got a rhythm," the resident shouted. The monitor began beeping steadily. Ethan's heart was beating again. Linda stepped back, nearly collapsing. Dr. Reynolds caught her arm. "You did it," the doctor said softly. "You brought him back." Linda looked at the young man on the table, now stable, now alive. Tears streamed down her face. "Finish the surgery," she managed to say. I'll be outside." She stumbled out of the OR and into the hallway, her legs barely holding her. She made it to the wall and leaned against it, sliding down until she sat on the floor, her scrubs soaked with sweat and blood. Around her, the hospital continued its Christmas Eve rhythm. Somewhere, a phone rang. Someone laughed in a distant room. The intercom crackled with routine announcements. Linda sat there, shaking, and cried. She cried for Ethan Brooks, who'd almost died tonight. She cried for his family, who didn't even know yet how close they'd come to losing him. She cried for every patient she'd saved, and every one she couldn't. She cried for David, who died saving others. She cried for Marcus, who hadn't even texted her back yet. And she cried for herself, for 21 years of Christmas Eve spent in hospitals instead of homes, for a life of service that left her so empty, for loving so hard, and having nowhere to put all that love. Dr. Reynolds found her 10 minutes later. The surgeon sat down beside Linda without a word, just pressed a bottle of water into her hand. "He's stable," Dr. Reynolds said. "Surgery went well. He'll live." Linda nodded, taking a shaky sip of water. "You know what you did in there was extraordinary, right?" Dr. Reynolds continued. "Most people would have stopped. I was about to stop. I couldn't let him die, Linda said simply. Someone's waiting for him. Someone needs him to come home. Dr. Reynolds looked at her for a long moment. And who's waiting for you, Linda? Who needs you to come home? Linda didn't answer. She couldn't. They sat in silence until Linda's hands stopped shaking. Then she pulled herself up, washed her face in the bathroom, changed into fresh scrubs, and went back to work. Because that's what she did. By midnight, Ethan Brooks had been moved to the ICU. Linda had checked on him twice, making sure all his vitals were stable, adjusting his IV, smoothing his blankets with gentle hands. She stood beside his bed now, the room dark, except for the glow of monitors. Through the window, snow continued to fall, covering the city in white. Ethan's cracked phone sat on the bedside table. Linda glanced at it, and saw the family photo again, that happy moment frozen in time. Your family needs you, she whispered to the unconscious man. So you fight, son. You hear me? You fight. She reached out and gently squeezed his hand, the way she used to hold Marcus's hand when he was sick as a child. Merry Christmas, she said softly. Then she turned and walked back to the nurse's station, where the night stretched ahead of her, long and lonely, and exactly the same as every other Christmas Eve for the past 21 years. Her phone buzzed. Finally, a text from Marcus. Marcus, Merry Christmas, Mom. Love you. Talk tomorrow. Linda stared at the message. 7 words. After waiting all day, 7 words. She typed back, Merry Christmas, baby. I love you so much. I'm so proud of you. But she didn't send it. Too much emotion, too needy. She deleted it, and wrote instead, Merry Christmas, sweetheart. Love you. She sent it, put her phone away, and looked out at the snow. Somewhere in this hospital, Ethan Brooks was alive because she'd refused to give up on him. That had to count for something. That had to be enough. It had to be. Christmas morning arrived with pale winter sunlight streaming through the ICU windows. Linda had stayed at the hospital all night, catching brief naps between rounds. At 7 o'clock, she stood outside Ethan Brooks's room, watching him through the glass. He'd made it through the night, vitals stable, breathing steady, but still unconscious. She checked her phone. 7:05. Marcus had promised to call at 7. She waited. 7:15. 7:30. At 7:42, her phone finally rang. Marcus, Merry Christmas, baby. Her son's face appeared on screen, hair messy, eyes heavy with sleep. Hey Mom, Merry Christmas. Sorry I overslept. That's okay, sweetheart. I'm just so happy to see your face. How's your Christmas? Did you work last night? I did. We had a critical patient, a young man about your age. She wanted to tell him about the CPR, about saving Ethan's life, about how scared she'd been. That's good, Mom. Marcus was already looking away from the camera. Listen, the team is meeting in 20 minutes, so I can't talk long. 20 minutes. She'd waited all night for 20 minutes. I understand. You go do your important work. Thanks, Mom. Love you. Talk soon, okay? I love you too. The screen went dark. Linda stood in the empty hallway, staring at her phone. Around her the hospital hummed with life, but she'd never felt more alone. 2 days later, December 26th, Linda was checking Ethan's vitals when urgent voices filled the hallway. Where is he? Where's my son? A woman in her early 60s rushed through the door, terror written on her face. Behind her came a tall man with silver hair. Catherine and William Brooks had arrived from Boston. Mrs. Brooks, Linda said gently, I'm Linda Washington. I've been caring for your son. But Catherine wasn't listening. Her eyes had found Ethan lying in the hospital bed, and a sound came out of her, a mother's cry, raw and primal, and full of love and fear. Oh my baby, Catherine sobbed, rushing to the bedside. She grabbed Ethan's hand and pressed it against her face, her whole body shaking. My baby boy, Mama's here now. William was right behind her, his hand immediately going to his son's shoulder, his other hand gripping his wife's. We're both here, son, he said, his voice breaking. You're not alone. You hear me? You're not alone. Linda stood frozen, watching this moment of pure, desperate love unfold in front of her. Catherine bent over her son, smoothing his hair back from his forehead the way mothers do, the way Linda used to do when Marcus was small. I'm so sorry we weren't here sooner, Catherine whispered. The snow delayed our flight, but we came as fast as we could. We're here now, baby. We're right here. William wrapped his arm around his wife, his other hand never leaving his son's shoulder, and the three of them formed this unit, this complete, unbreakable circle of family and love and presence, and Linda stood outside that circle, watching. She watched Catherine kiss Ethan's forehead. She watched William wipe tears from his eyes, while refusing to let go of his son. She watched them hold on to each other, like if they let go, the world might tear them apart again. This was what family looked like. This was what showing up meant, and Linda felt something crack open inside her chest, something raw and painful and desperately lonely. "Mrs. Brooks," Linda finally found her voice. "I'm so glad you're here." Catherine looked up, and her face was transformed by relief and gratitude. She stood and pulled Linda into an embrace so tight it hurt. "You saved him," Catherine said into Linda's shoulder, her voice breaking. "They told me his heart stopped. They told me you brought him back. You saved my baby's life." Linda stood there, this stranger's arms around her, and she felt something she hadn't felt in so long, needed, held, important to someone. "I'm just glad he's okay," Linda managed to say. "I'm so glad you're here." William stepped forward, and took Linda's hand too. "We owe you everything, everything." Linda extracted herself gently. "You don't owe me anything, just be here for him. He needs you." She left the room quickly, before they could see her face crumble. In the hallway, Linda pressed her back against the wall, and closed her eyes. Her hands were shaking. Her chest felt tight. She should be happy. She'd saved a life. She'd reunited a family. So why did it hurt so much? She forced herself to look back through the window into Ethan's room. Catherine had pulled a chair right up against the bed, and was holding Ethan's hand in both of hers, talking to him softly. William stood behind her, one hand on her shoulder, the other resting on his son's arm. They were touching him constantly, as if reassuring themselves he was real, he was alive, he was still theirs, a family, complete and whole and fiercely devoted to each other. And Linda thought about her empty house. She thought about eating dinner alone every night. She thought about waking up on Christmas morning, and having a 10-minute video call with her son, before he rushed off to his important work. She thought about 4 years of loving someone from 3,000 miles away, of pretending that occasional phone calls were enough, of lying to herself that she was fine. And she thought about how Catherine had run through that hospital, desperate to get to her son. How William had dropped everything to be here. How they'd both just shown up. No excuses, no "I'm too busy," no "maybe next time." Just presence, just love, just being there. When was the last time someone had shown up for Linda like that? Sarah found her standing there, staring through that window. "Linda, you okay?" Linda wiped her eyes quickly. "I'm fine, sweetie." But Sarah had seen. She stepped closer, and pulled Linda into a hug, and that small kindness was what finally broke Linda completely. She stood there in Sarah's arms and cried, really cried, for the first time in years. "I'm sorry," Linda gasped. "I'm so sorry." Sarah said. "You don't have to be sorry. You don't have to be strong all the time." But Linda did, because if she wasn't strong, if she let herself feel all of this, she didn't know if she could keep going. That evening, Linda's shift finally ended. She walked to her car, and sat in the driver's seat, unable to make herself turn the key. Going home meant walking into that silent house. She pulled out her phone, and looked at her last text from Marcus. Marcus. One emoji. That's what their relationship had become. Linda started typing, "I miss you so much, please come home." Her finger hovered over send, then she deleted it, and typed instead, "Hope you're having a good week, love you." She sent it, started her car, and drove home to her empty house. Inside, the silence wrapped around her. She stood in her living room, and wondered how many more years she could live like this. Her phone buzzed. "Marcus, you too, Mom." 3 words. Linda sat down on her couch in the darkness and let herself admit the truth. She was dying inside. Not physically, but in every way that mattered. And nobody even noticed. Not even her own son. Over the next 3 weeks, Ethan Brooks slowly recovered in Memorial Hospital. He woke up on December 27th, groggy, confused but alive. His parents never left his side. Linda watched them through the glass day after day as they created this bubble of love around their son. Catherine slept in the chair beside his bed. William brought her coffee, fresh clothes, held her hand through the fear. They read to Ethan, played music, talked to him even when he was too weak to respond. And every time Linda entered that room to check vitals or adjust medication, she felt that sharp ache of watching something she didn't have anymore. One afternoon in early January, she walked in to find them laughing over photos on Catherine's phone. "That was the best vacation," Ethan said, his voice still weak. "Remember when Dad fell off the kayak?" "I didn't fall, I dismounted gracefully," William protested. Linda stood at the door with her medication tray frozen by the warmth between them. "Oh, Nurse Washington." Catherine waved her over. "Look at this disaster of a family photo." Linda approached slowly. The picture showed them on a beach, wind-blown, sunburned, laughing. "Last summer," Catherine explained. "A week together doing nothing but being family." "You all look very happy," Linda said softly. "We are." Catherine squeezed Ethan's hand without thinking, that unconscious touch of connection. "These moments are everything." Linda excused herself quickly before they could see her face. Because the last photo she had with Marcus was from 4 years ago, and they hadn't been laughing. Over the days that followed, Ethan started watching Linda more carefully. He saw how she brightened when her phone buzzed, then tried to hide her disappointment. He saw her eating lunch alone, staring at something on her screen. He saw how she always volunteered for extra shifts, like she had nowhere else to be. He asked the other nurses about her. They all said the same thing. Linda was the heart of this place, kind, dedicated, always taking the holiday shifts so younger nurses could be with family. "She's worked every Christmas for 21 years, Sarah told him. "Every single one, never complains, never asks for anything in return." "Does she have family?" Ethan asked. Sarah's face fell. "A son in California. But we never see him. She doesn't talk about it much, but..." She trailed off, the sadness saying everything. Ethan understood then. This woman who'd refused to give up on him was slowly disappearing herself. By late January, Ethan was strong enough to be discharged, but with strict orders. No travel for 6 weeks. Physical therapy 3 times a week, complete rest. His parents rented a furnished apartment nearby to stay with him through recovery. On his last day in the hospital, Ethan asked Linda for her address. She resisted. "You don't need to thank me, Ethan. I need to try." His eyes were serious. "Please." She finally wrote it down, never expecting what would come next. 3 weeks later, February 20th, Ethan felt strong enough for a short drive. He had his mother take him to Linda's address. "Are you sure you're up for this?" Catherine worried. "I have to be." When Linda opened her door and found Ethan on her porch moving carefully, Catherine hovering beside him, she looked shocked. "Ethan, you should be resting. I needed to thank you properly." He gestured to his mother. "Both of us did." Linda ushered them inside, immediately fussing over Ethan, making sure he was comfortable with pillows supporting his healing ribs. She brought tea, settled them on her couch, and then Ethan looked around. The house was clean but hollow, furniture barely used, a dining table with a thin film of dust. Everything in its place, but nothing that suggested life actually happened here. His eyes found the memorial shelf, David's photo in his firefighter uniform, the folded flag, and Marcus's graduation picture. "Your husband?" Ethan asked gently. "Was." Linda's voice was quiet. "David, 10 years ago. Warehouse fire. And your son?" Linda's whole face changed, pride and pain mixing together. "Marcus, MIT graduate, software engineer in San Francisco." The pride was real, but so was the hurt underneath. Catherine sat close to Ethan, her hand resting naturally on his shoulder, that unconscious connection parents have with their children. Ethan saw Linda notice it, saw something flicker across her face. "When did you last see him?" Ethan asked. The pause was too long. 4 years ago. 2 days. Catherine's hand tightened on Ethan's shoulder. Her eyes filled with tears. "But we FaceTime regularly," Linda added quickly. "He's very busy with work." Ethan stood slowly, Catherine helping him, and moved to the small desk by the window. A calendar hung there, and he could see Linda's careful handwriting marking the days. January, Marcus call. February, Marcus birthday and call M. Question marks. Hoping, waiting. "Linda," Ethan said, turning to face her. "Tell me the truth. Why do you work every Christmas?" Linda's hands twisted together. For a long moment she was silent. Then the truth came, quiet and raw. "After David died, Christmas became impossible. Marcus was 8. I tried to keep it normal, but all I could see was the empty chair." Her voice caught. "So I started working the holidays. told myself I was helping others, but really, I was just avoiding the loneliness. A tear slipped down her cheek. After Marcus left for college, the house got so quiet. Then he took the job in San Francisco and suddenly he was gone. Really gone. She looked at his photo. He'd visit sometimes at first, but it got harder. His job got bigger. And I kept saying I understood, that I was proud, that his career mattered. But you weren't fine, Ethan said softly. No, the word broke. I eat every meal alone. I talk to his photo. Sometimes I call his voicemail just to hear his voice. She covered her face. What kind of mother can't survive without her son? The kind who loves him, Catherine said, moving to sit beside Linda. The kind who sacrificed everything and forgot to save anything for herself. Does Marcus know? Ethan asked. Does he know how lonely you are? Linda shook her head. I can't tell him. He'd feel guilty. I can't ruin what he's built. Or, Ethan said carefully, maybe he needs to know. Before it's too late, before you disappear completely. Linda looked up at him, tears streaming. I don't know how to tell him. Let me help. Ethan pulled out his phone. What's Marcus's full name? Where does he work? Marcus Washington. Tech Vision Solutions, San Francisco. Ethan typed, then stopped. Looked up with stunned recognition. Linda, Tech Vision was acquired by my company 18 months ago. Marcus works for Brooks Technologies. He works for me. Linda's eyes went wide. What? Catherine laughed through tears. That's not coincidence. That's meant to be. I can talk to him, Ethan said. I can help him see what he's missing. But only if you let me. Linda's hands trembled. She looked at Marcus's photo, her boy frozen in time 4 years ago. What if? What if I only make things harder for him? She whispered. He has his own life now. I don't want to be a burden. What if it doesn't make things harder? Ethan said gently. What if it gives both of you a chance to heal? Linda, you gave me a second chance at life. Let me try to give you one too. Catherine squeezed her hand warmly. You're not causing trouble, sweetheart. And you're not alone. We'll do this together. For the first time in 4 years, the older woman let herself believe, just a little, that things might change. Ethan didn't waste a single moment. Ethan didn't waste time. That evening back at his apartment, he called his assistant Rebecca. His ribs still ached. He tired easily, but this was too important. I need personnel files for someone. Marcus Washington, senior software engineer at Tech Vision. Boss, you're supposed to be resting. This is more important than rest. How fast can you get it? Rebecca sighed. 6 hours. Make it 3. 5 hours later the files arrived. Ethan opened them on his laptop, Catherine reading over his shoulder. Marcus Washington, 32, MIT Computer Science, graduated with honors. Hired by Tech Vision 4 years ago, promoted 3 times. Current salary, $185,000 plus options. Performance reviews glowing, exceptional, dedicated, innovative. But it was the attendance records that told the real story. Marcus had worked through the last 4 Christmases. Minimal vacation time, less than 1 week per year. Regular overtime. His manager praised his commitment and work ethic. In other words, Marcus was exactly like Ethan had been, so focused on climbing that he couldn't see what he was losing. Look at this, Catherine said, pointing to a note from Marcus's manager dated last November. Recommended for promotion to director level. Salary increase to $250,000, but requires relocation to the Seattle office. Ethan leaned back thinking, he's about to move even farther away. Does he know what it's costing him? Catherine's voice was thick with emotion. Does he have any idea what he's doing to his mother? Ethan thought about Linda's face when she talked about Marcus. The pride mixed with pain. The careful way she said he's very busy, like it was a script she'd memorized. He thought about his own mother, who'd flown through a snowstorm to reach his bedside, who'd slept in a hospital chair for weeks, who'd refused to leave even when he told her to go home and rest. What if he'd spent the last 4 years too busy to see her? What if his accident had never happened and he just kept climbing, kept chasing success, until one day he looked up and she was gone? I need to go to San Francisco, Ethan said. Absolutely not. Catherine's voice was firm. The doctors said no travel for 6 weeks. You're only 3 weeks post-discharge. Mom, no, I didn't sit by your bedside watching you fight for your life just to watch you undo all that healing. She crossed her arms. If you need to talk to Marcus, we'll bring him here. Ethan started to argue, then stopped. His mother was right as usual. Okay, different plan. He pulled up his email. I'll arrange a video call, tell him it's about a new project opportunity. Get him talking, see what he's really like. And then what? Catherine asked. Then I figure out how to wake him up before it's too late. 2 days later, Marcus Washington's face appeared on Ethan's laptop screen. He looked like Linda, same eyes, same bone structure. But where Linda's face showed warmth and sadness, Marcus looked driven, focused, professional. Mr. Brooks, this is an honor. Marcus's background showed a modern apartment, expensive furniture. I hope your recovery is going well. Thank you, Marcus. I'm getting there. Ethan studied him. I wanted to talk to you about potential opportunities within Brooks Technologies. Your work at Tech Vision has been exceptional. Marcus brightened. I appreciate that, sir. I've been working on some innovative solutions for They talked about work for 20 minutes. Marcus was brilliant, no question. Passionate about his projects, articulate about his vision. Exactly the kind of engineer any company would want. But Ethan was watching for something else. Tell me about your life outside work, Ethan said casually. Family, friends, how do you unwind? Marcus's enthusiasm dimmed slightly. Honestly, I don't have much time for that. The tech industry moves fast. You have to stay focused to stay ahead. No family in the area. My mom's in Cleveland, but we keep in touch. She understands how demanding this work is. The way he said it, so casual, so certain, made Ethan's chest tighten. When did you last see her? Marcus shifted uncomfortably. It's been a few years. Work makes it hard to get away. But I call when I can. When you can, Ethan repeated. What does that mean? Every couple weeks usually. Sometimes more. Marcus's tone became defensive. I send her money every month. I make sure she's taken care of. Money. Ethan kept his voice neutral. Is that what she needs? Look, I appreciate the interest in my personal life, Mr. Brooks, but your mother saved my life. The words hung in the air. Marcus's face went blank with shock. What? Ethan told him everything. The accident, the surgery, his heart stopping. Linda refusing to give up, doing CPR for 5 minutes, bringing him back from death. Marcus listened, his face growing paler. I didn't know, he whispered. She didn't tell me. Why would she? You were busy, working on important projects. Ethan let that sink in. When did you last have a real conversation with her? Not a quick check-in call, a real conversation. Marcus didn't answer. I went to her house, Ethan continued. I saw how she lives, that empty house, Marcus. The dining table that hasn't been used. The calendar where she marks the days hoping you might call. The way she lights up at every phone notification, then tries to hide her disappointment when it's not you. That's not fair, Marcus said, but his voice cracked. You don't understand. My mom has always wanted me to succeed. Everything she did, every sacrifice, it was so I could have this life. And what about her life? While you're having yours, what's she having? She has her work, her friends at the hospital. She tells me she's fine. She's lying. Ethan's voice was hard now. She works every Christmas because being at a hospital is less lonely than being at home. She eats every meal alone. She talks to your photograph because that's the closest she gets to having you in her life. Marcus stood up abruptly. I think this conversation is over. Your mother is dying, Marcus. Not physically, but in every way that matters. She's disappearing a little more every day, and you're too busy to notice. You have no right. I have every right. She saved my life, and I'm trying to save hers. Ethan leaned forward. How many years do you think you have? 20, 30 if you're lucky. How many of those are you willing to lose? I can't just drop everything. I have responsibilities. To who? Your company, your career, your stock options. Ethan's voice softened. Marcus, I almost died. I was dead. And in those moments, all I could think about was my family. Not my company, not my achievements, just them. Marcus sat back down slowly, his face in his hands. I have an opportunity for you, Ethan said. Lead engineer for our new Midwest division, based in Cleveland. Same salary, better title. You'd be building something from the ground up, reporting directly to me. Cleveland, Marcus repeated. 20 minutes from your mother. Close enough to have dinner with her. Close enough to show up. Close enough to stop letting her die of loneliness while you chase promotions. I need to think, don't think too long. Ethan's voice was quiet now. Because one day, Marcus, you're going to get a phone call, and you're going to wish you'd come home when you still had the chance. The screen went dark. Ethan sat back, exhausted. Catherine had been listening from the other room. She came in and put her hand on his shoulder. Do you think it worked? She asked. I don't know, but I had to try. 3 days passed, no word from Marcus. Ethan tried to focus on his physical therapy, on healing, but his mind kept returning to Linda, to her empty house, and her careful smile, and the way she pretended she was fine. On the 4th day his phone rang. Unknown number. This is Ethan, Mr. Brooks. It's Marcus Washington. A long pause. I can't stop thinking about what you said, about my mom. Ethan waited. Can you tell me more, about what you saw, about how she really is? And Ethan did. He told Marcus everything. The way Linda's hands shook when she talked about him, the tears she tried to hide, the empty rooms, and unused furniture, and calendar full of question marks. I didn't know, Marcus said, and now he was crying. I swear I didn't know it was that bad. She didn't want you to know. She was protecting you. From what? From feeling guilty, from having to choose between your dreams and her needs, from being the mother who asks too much. Ethan paused. But Marcus, love isn't supposed to be silent, and she needs you. She needs you to know the truth. What do I do? Marcus's voice was broken. How do I fix this? Come home. Actually come home. Not for 2 days. Come home and stay. The job offer, is it real? Completely. I'll have HR send the paperwork tomorrow. But Marcus, Ethan's voice hardened. Don't take it because it's a good career move. Take it because you love your mother more than you love your resume. I do. God, I do love her. I forgot how to show it. Then show her now, before it's too late. After Marcus hung up, Ethan sat in the quiet apartment, his mother beside him. Do you think he'll come? Catherine asked. I hope so, for both their sakes. You did a good thing, sweetheart. Ethan thought about Linda's face, about the loneliness etched into every line. I owed her. She gave me my life back. The least I can do is try to give her hers. 2 weeks later, mid-March now, nearly 3 months since the accident, Ethan's phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. I'm flying to Cleveland tomorrow. Don't tell her. I want to see for myself first. Ethan smiled. Marcus was coming home. Marcus Washington landed in Cleveland on a gray March afternoon, 3 months after the accident that would change his life. He told his manager he needed personal time, didn't explain why. He told his team he'd be offline for a few days. He told everyone, except the one person who mattered most. His mother didn't know he was coming. Ethan met him at the airport, moving better now, but still careful. Nearly 3 months of healing had done him good, but the scars, visible and invisible, remained. You came, Ethan said. Marcus looked exhausted. Dark circles under his eyes, rumpled clothes, the look of someone who hadn't slept well in weeks. I had to see for myself. You could be exaggerating. You could be. I'm not. Ethan's voice was gentle. But I understand. Come on. They drove to Memorial Hospital. Marcus was quiet, staring out the window at the city he'd left behind. Everything looked smaller than he remembered. Or maybe he'd just been gone too long. She's working the day shift today, Ethan said. 3 to 11, there's a waiting area with a window that overlooks the ER. You can watch without her seeing you. I feel like a stalker. You're a son who needs to understand what his absence really looks like. They parked. Marcus sat in the car, frozen, unable to make himself move. What if I can't handle it? He whispered. Then you can't. But at least you'll know the truth. Ethan opened his door. Come on. She needs you to see this. Inside, Ethan led Marcus to a small waiting area on the 2nd floor. Glass walls looked down onto the emergency department, and there at the center of everything was Linda Washington. Marcus's breath caught. His mother looked old, so much older than 4 years should have made her. Her hair was more silver than black now. She moved slower, with a slight limp he'd never noticed before. Her scrubs hung loose, like she'd lost weight she couldn't afford to lose. But her face still had that same determined calm as she moved from patient to patient. "Just watch," Ethan said quietly, settling into a chair. "That's all you need to do." For the next 3 hours, Marcus stood at that window and watched his mother work. He watched her with an elderly man who was alone, no family. She sat beside his bed, holding his hand, talking to him like he was someone precious. When the man's tests came back clear, Linda helped him with his coat, made sure he had her number, told him to call if he needed anything. After the man left, Linda stood in the hallway for a moment. Marcus saw her wipe her eyes before moving to the next patient. He watched her with a young woman who'd been in a car accident, crying and terrified, calling for her mother. Linda pulled up a chair and sat close, stroking the girl's hair, speaking softly. "Shiz, sweetheart, I've got you. You're safe. I'm right here." The way she said it, the gentleness, the tenderness was exactly how she used to comfort Marcus when he was small. How many strangers had received the mothering that should have been his? He watched her in the break room at 7:30. Linda sat down heavily, like every bone hurt. She pulled out a sad-looking sandwich and stared at it without eating. Then she took out her phone. Marcus felt his own phone buzz in his pocket. He pulled it out. "Mom, hi sweetheart, hope you had a good day. Thinking about you. Love you so much." Through the glass, Marcus watched his mother stare at her phone, waiting. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3. He watched her face fall when no response came. Watched her delete something she'd started typing. Watched her put the phone away and pick up her sandwich. She ate alone in that empty break room, surrounded by vacant chairs, her face a mask of careful composure that was breaking Marcus's heart. Sarah came in, sat with her. Marcus couldn't hear what they were saying, but he saw Sarah reach for Linda's hand, saw his mother's shoulders start to shake, saw her crying, trying to hide it, trying to hold herself together. Marcus turned away from the window, his vision blurring. "I can't," he gasped. "I can't watch this." Ethan stood, putting a hand on his shoulder. "You need to see it. You need to know. She's so alone." Marcus's voice broke. "God, she's so alone, and I've just been what? Working, chasing promotions, while she's been falling apart." He pressed his palms against his eyes, but he couldn't stop the tears. 4 years. 4 years I haven't hugged her. 4 years I've been too busy to visit, too important to come home. And she's been here dying a little more every day, and I didn't even notice. "She didn't want you to notice," Ethan said quietly. "She was protecting you. From what? From being a decent son, from caring about her." Marcus slid down the wall, sitting on the floor, his whole body shaking. "What have I done? What kind of person am I?" Ethan sat beside him. "You're someone who got caught up in the wrong things, someone who forgot what mattered. But you're here now, Marcus. That's what counts. Is it? Is it enough?" Marcus looked at him with devastated eyes. "How do I apologize for 4 years? How do I explain that I was so busy building a career, that I forgot about the person who made that career possible?" You start by showing up, really showing up, not for a weekend, not for a quick visit. You show up and you stay. Marcus wiped his face with his hands. "The job offer. Is it still available?" "Yes. But Marcus, take it because you want to come home, not because you feel guilty." "I do feel guilty. I feel sick with it." Marcus stood slowly. "But that's not why I want to come home. I want to come home because I miss her, because I've wasted 4 years, and I don't want to waste another day. Because money and promotions and stock options don't mean anything if I lose her in the process." He looked back through the window. Linda was alone again, reviewing charts, her face tired and sad. "I need to see her. Now. Are you sure? You look, I don't care how I look. I need my mom." Marcus walked down the hallway toward the emergency department, his heart pounding, his hands shaking. He pushed through the double doors. Linda was at the nurse's station, writing notes in a chart. She looked up at the sound of the doors, professional, ready to help whoever needed help. Then she saw him. The pen fell from her hand, clattering to the floor. Her face went white. Marcus, her voice was barely a whisper, like she couldn't believe what she was seeing. Baby, is that really you? For a moment, neither of them moved. They just stared at each other across the emergency department, mother and son, separated by 4 years and 10 feet and an ocean of unspoken pain. Then Marcus's face crumpled. Mom, he choked out. Mom, I'm so sorry. He ran to her, actually ran, closing the distance in seconds, and wrapped his arms around her, held her tight, held her like he should have done 4 years ago and every day since. Linda stood frozen, like she couldn't process that this was real. Then her arms came up around her son, and she gripped him like she was drowning, and he was the only thing keeping her above water. You're here, she gasped against his chest, her whole body shaking. You're really here. I'm here, Mom. I'm here. Marcus was crying now, really crying, years of suppressed emotion breaking free. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. For what, baby? Linda pulled back just enough to look at his face, her hands coming up to cup his cheeks. You're here now. That's all that matters. No, it's not all that matters. Marcus's voice broke. I'm sorry I stayed away. I'm sorry I was too busy to visit. I'm sorry I made you feel like you didn't matter. I'm sorry I let you be so lonely while I chased things that don't mean anything. Sweetheart. It's okay. It's not okay. Marcus grabbed her hands. None of it is okay. You've been alone. You've been eating dinner by yourself, working holidays, pretending you're fine when you're falling apart, and I just kept living my life like everything was normal. Linda's eyes filled with tears. You were building your future. I wanted that for you. My future without you. What's the point of that? Marcus pulled her close again. What's the point of any success if I lose you in the process? Around them, the emergency department had gone completely silent. Nurses, doctors, patients, everyone had stopped to watch. Several people were crying. Dr. Reynolds stood near the nurses' station, tears streaming down her face. Sarah had her hands over her mouth, sobbing. Tom, the security guard, turned away to wipe his eyes. Linda was crying too now, 4 years of carefully held composure finally breaking. I missed you, she whispered into her son's shoulder. I missed you every single day. I know, Mom, and I'm never going to make you feel like that again. Marcus held her tighter. I'm coming home. I'm taking the job, here. I'm moving back to Cleveland. Linda pulled back sharply. What? No, Marcus, your career doesn't matter. Not compared to you. Marcus wiped her tears with his thumbs. I've spent 4 years chasing the wrong things. I thought success meant salary and promotions, and living in Silicon Valley. But real success is this, being here with you, being your son, not just someone who calls once a month out of obligation. But everything you've built means nothing if you're not in my life. Marcus's voice was fierce now. I got an offer from Ethan, lead engineer, same pay, better title. I'll be working here, in Cleveland, 20 minutes from you, and I'm taking it. Are you sure? Linda searched his face. Are you absolutely sure? I've never been more sure of anything. Marcus smiled through his tears. I want to come home, Mom. I want to have dinner with you. I want to spend holidays together. I want to actually be part of your life again. Oh baby. Linda pulled him into another embrace, holding on like she'd never let go. That's all I ever wanted. Just you. Just this. They stood there in the middle of the emergency department, holding each other, both crying, both finally letting down all the walls they'd built to protect themselves from the pain of separation. Dr. Reynolds approached quietly. Linda, take the rest of the night off. Go home with your son. Linda looked up at her supervisor, then back at Marcus. Can we? Yeah, Mom. Let's go home. They walked out together, Marcus's arm around his mother's shoulders, Linda holding on to her son like he might disappear if she let go. In the parking lot, under the streetlights with snow beginning to fall, Linda stopped and looked up at Marcus. I can't believe you're really here. Marcus brushed snow from her hair. I'm here, and I'm staying. He touched her face gently. I love you, Mom. I should have said it more. I should have shown it more. But I'm going to do better. I promise. Linda reached up to touch her son's face, memorizing it after 4 years of screens and distance. I love you too, baby, more than anything in this world. They drove to Linda's house, Marcus following in his rental car. When they pulled into the driveway, he saw what Ethan had seen, a dark house that looked like loneliness incarnate. But when Linda unlocked the door and turned on the lights, when Marcus stepped inside for the first time in 4 years, something shifted. The house didn't look empty anymore. It looked like a home waiting to come back to life. Are you hungry? Linda asked. Already moving toward the kitchen, falling into old patterns. I can make you something. Mom, sit down. Marcus gently took her shoulders and guided her to the couch. Let me take care of you for once. Please. Linda sat, and for the first time in 4 years she let someone else take care of her. She watched her son move around her kitchen, opening cabinets, finding ingredients, cooking something simple. She listened to the sounds of him being there. The refrigerator opening, dishes clinking, his voice humming softly. Sounds she'd been starving for. 20 minutes later, Marcus brought her a plate of eggs and toast. He sat beside her, and they ate together in comfortable silence. This is good, Linda said softly. It's just eggs. No. Linda set down her fork and looked at her son with tears in her eyes. This you being here, us eating together, not being alone, this is good. This is everything I've been missing. Marcus set down his own fork and took his mother's hand. I'm sorry it took me so long to figure out what really matters. You're here now. Linda squeezed his hand. That's what matters. They sat together on that couch until late into the night, talking about everything and nothing. Marcus told her about his work, his apartment, his life in San Francisco. Linda told him about her patients, about Grace, about the hospital. But mostly they just sat together, filling the silence with presence, making up for 4 years of absence. When Linda finally went to bed, Marcus stayed on the couch. He lay there in the darkness, listening to the sounds of the house settling, and thought about how close he'd come to losing this forever. How close he'd come to being the son who got a phone call one day, and had to live with regret for the rest of his life. But he was here now, and he was never leaving again. In her bedroom, Linda lay in the darkness and cried, but these were different tears. These were tears of relief, of gratitude, of joy so profound it hurt. Her son was home. After 4 years of loneliness, after 4 years of pretending she was fine, after 4 years of slowly disappearing, her son was finally home, and she could breathe again. Marcus stayed in Cleveland for 1 week, and they were the best 7 days Linda had experienced in 4 years. That first night after eggs and toast, they talked until 2 in the morning. Linda told him about patients she'd lost and saved. Marcus told him about the pressure at work, how he'd been running so fast he forgot to look up. I thought if I could just achieve enough, it would justify your sacrifices, Marcus said quietly. Linda took his hand. Baby, you made me proud when you were 8 and tried to make dinner for me because I was working a double. You nearly burned down the kitchen, but you tried. Marcus laughed. Mac and cheese in a metal bowl. In the microwave, the smoke alarm went off for 20 minutes. They both laughed, and it felt good. Over the week, Marcus barely left her side. He drove her to work, picked her up, cooked dinner every night. They visited Grace together. She screamed when she saw him and hugged him until he couldn't breathe. About time you came home, baby boy, Grace said through tears. They went to David's grave on the 5th day. Marcus knelt by the headstone. Hey Dad, I'm coming home. I'm going to take care of Mom the way you would have. His voice broke. I promise I won't leave her alone anymore. Linda knelt beside him, her arm around his shoulders. He's proud of you, baby. I know he is. On Marcus's last day before flying back to San Francisco to pack, they sat at the kitchen table with coffee and paperwork. Marcus pulled up the employment offer on his laptop. Lead engineer, Midwest Division. Same salary, better title. He looked at his mother. Ethan made this happen in 3 weeks. He hit accept and watched the confirmation load. It's done. I'm officially coming home, April 15th. Linda's hands trembled. Are you scared? Terrified, Marcus admitted. I'm leaving everything I built, but I'm more scared of losing you, Mom. I'm more scared of wasting the time we have left. At the airport they stood at security, neither wanting to let go. 3 weeks, Marcus said. I'll be back with all my stuff. 3 weeks, Linda repeated, but her voice shook. Marcus pulled her into a tight hug. Mom, call me every day. I don't care if it's just to tell me about the weather. Call me, And no more pretending you're fine when you're not. If you're lonely, call me at 3 in the morning. I don't care. I'm your son. Okay, Linda whispered, I promise. The next 3 weeks were the longest of Linda's life. But they talked every single day. Marcus called during lunch to tell her about packing. Linda called after shifts to tell him about patience. I forgot how much stuff I have. Marcus said one day, surrounded by boxes, bring what matters. Baby, leave the rest. What matters is you, Mom. Everything else is just stuff. On April 14th, Linda couldn't sleep. She got up at 5 and started cleaning, vacuuming, dusting, changing sheets in Marcus's room twice. Grace came over at noon and found her reorganizing the kitchen. Baby girl, sit down. It's already perfect because he's coming home. That evening Linda made pot roast, Marcus's favorite. She set the table for 2, lit candles, used the good dishes. Then she sat on the couch and waited. At 8:30 headlights swept across the window. Linda opened the door before Marcus could knock. He stood there with a suitcase, exhaustion on his face, a moving truck in the driveway behind him. Hi Mom, he said smiling. I'm home. Linda pulled him inside and hugged him, and this time it felt permanent. Welcome home baby, she whispered. Welcome home. Over the next month the house transformed. Marcus moved into his old room. They updated it together with new furniture and better lighting. There was noise again, music playing, Marcus on calls with his team, the sound of life. Linda came home from work to lights on and someone waiting. They cooked dinner together every night, set the table properly, ate as a family. One evening in May, Linda was washing dishes when Marcus came up with a towel. You don't have to help. You worked all day, so did you. He started drying. Besides, this is nice. They worked in comfortable silence. Marcus, yeah Mom, thank you for coming home. Marcus set down the dish and turned to her. Thank you for never giving up on me. Linda touched his face. You always deserved it baby, always. By late May, word of Linda and Marcus's reunion had spread far beyond Memorial Hospital. Sarah had posted about it on social media in April, a simple story about a son coming home, a family reunited because someone cared enough to intervene. Within days it had been shared thousands of times. The comments section filled with people tagging their own children, their own parents, their own estranged family members. One comment read, I haven't talked to my mom in 3 years over something stupid. I'm calling her right now. Another, my son lives 2 hours away and I haven't seen him in 6 months. I just texted him. Thank you for this wake-up call. The story caught the attention of Jennifer Hayes, a reporter for the Cleveland Plain Dealer. She reached out to Linda in early June. Would you be willing to share your story? I think people need to hear it. Linda was hesitant, but Marcus encouraged her. Your story might help other families, Mom. So Linda agreed. The article ran on June 20th with the headline, The Nurse Who Gave 21 Christmases and the Son Who Came Home. Jennifer's writing captured everything. Linda's years of lonely service, Marcus's awakening, and Ethan's crucial role as the catalyst who'd seen what they couldn't admit to themselves. The response was overwhelming. The article was picked up nationally within 48 hours. But more importantly, the hospital started receiving hundreds of letters from families reconnecting, from adult children calling their parents, from people finding their way back to each other. Linda kept every letter in a box. On hard days she'd read them and remember that her pain had served a purpose. One evening in early July, Linda and Marcus were having dinner when the doorbell rang. Ethan stood on the porch, moving easily now, fully recovered, looking healthier than he had in months. Ethan, Linda hugged him. Come in, have you eaten? I don't want to intrude. You're never intruding. Marcus said, shaking his hand. Join us. Mom made enough food for an army, as usual. They set another place at the table, and Ethan sat down with them. It felt natural, comfortable, like family. I wanted to tell you in person, Ethan said, setting down his fork. Brooks Technologies is launching something big. I've been working on it since February. He pulled out his tablet and showed them the presentation. The Healthcare Heroes Fund, $50 million to start, distributed nationwide to support healthcare workers. Linda's eyes went wide as he explained. Holiday bonuses, mental health services, child care assistance, expanded family leave. Ethan, this is incredible, she whispered. It's because of you, Linda. Everything I went through, everything I learned, It started with you refusing to give up on me." His voice grew thick. "You saved my life. And then you showed me what really matters. I can never repay that, but I can try to make sure other healthcare workers don't have to sacrifice the way you did." Marcus reached over and squeezed his mother's hand. "Memorial Hospital is the pilot program," Ethan continued. $500,000 in the first year. Dr. Reynolds is already implementing changes, better staffing ratios, mandatory time off, support programs. Linda's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll be there when we announce it publicly," Ethan said. "Next week, press conference. I want you beside me when we tell the world why this matters." "Me? But Mom, you have to," Marcus said. "This is your story. Your sacrifice made this happen." Linda looked between them. This young man who'd almost died and given her son back, and her son who'd finally come home. "Okay, yes, I'll be there." The press conference was held on July 15 at Brooks Technologies headquarters. Linda sat in the front row, Marcus beside her, as Ethan took the podium. "6 months ago, I was in a car accident that should have killed me," Ethan began. "My heart stopped. I was clinically dead, but a nurse named Linda Washington refused to give up." He told the whole story, the 5 minutes of CPR, waking up to find his parents there, meeting Linda and seeing her loneliness, meeting Marcus and helping him see what he was losing. "Linda gave me my life back, but more than that, she taught me what life is actually for, not for building companies or accumulating wealth, but for loving people, for showing up, for being present." Ethan's voice grew passionate. "While we celebrate entrepreneurs and innovators, we forget the real heroes, people like Linda who work holidays, miss their own families, sacrifice their well-being to care for strangers. That ends now." He outlined the Healthcare Heroes Fund in detail. The room erupted in applause. "Linda, would you come up here?" Ethan gestured to her. Linda walked to the podium on shaking legs. Ethan put his arm around her shoulders. "This woman saved my life, and now we're going to make sure people like her get the support they deserve, so they don't have to choose between their calling and their happiness, so they don't have to work 21 Christmases in a row just to avoid going home to an empty house." He looked at Linda with tears in his eyes. "Thank you, for everything, for my life, for my perspective, for showing me what really matters. I owe you everything." Linda hugged him tight. "You gave me my son back, Ethan. We're even." "Never," Ethan said, smiling through tears. "I'll spend the rest of my life trying to repay that debt." After the press conference, as reporters swarmed and cameras flashed, Catherine Brooks pulled Linda aside. "William and I wanted to talk to you," Catherine said. William stood beside her, holding her hand. "What Ethan did, coming to find you, helping Marcus see the truth, that's because of how we raised him. But it's also because of what you showed him. You taught him that love means refusing to give up." William added, "That's why he didn't give up on reuniting your family. You inspired that." Catherine took both of Linda's hands. "We think of you as family now. You saved our son's life, and then you taught him how to live it. That's a gift we can never repay." Linda was crying now. "You raised an incredible young man. He changed everything for us. And you changed everything for us." Catherine said, "Our son came home from that accident different, better, more focused on what matters. That's because of you." The three of them stood there, this unlikely family formed by tragedy and grace, and hugged. Marcus appeared beside them, Ethan with him. "Mom, they want you for an interview." "All of us," Ethan corrected. "They want to interview all of us together, the whole story." So they sat down together, Linda, Marcus, Ethan, Catherine and William, and told their story to the cameras, about death and life, about loneliness and family, about how one act of refusing to give up created ripples that changed everything. Within weeks, other major companies followed Brooks Technologies' lead. Google announced a healthcare worker support fund. Microsoft launched family leave programs for hospital staff. Amazon created mental health services for frontline workers. A movement was building, all sparked by one nurse who'd refused to let a stranger die on Christmas Eve, and one CEO who'd refused to let that nurse's sacrifice go unrecognized. In September, Linda invited Ethan and his parents to Sunday dinner at her house. It had become a monthly tradition, the Washington family and the Brooks family sharing a meal, sharing their lives. "You know what's amazing?" Ethan said, helping Marcus clear the table after dinner. 6 months ago, I was so focused on my company, on deals and acquisitions and growth. I barely saw my parents. I worked every holiday. I was just like Marcus, chasing success and missing life. And now, Marcus asked, now I have Sunday dinners. I take real vacations. I call my mom just to talk. Ethan smiled. I'm running the same company, doing the same work, but I'm actually living. That's because your mom saved my life twice. Once on the operating table, and once by showing me what I was missing. In the living room, Catherine sat beside Linda on the couch while William and Grace argued good-naturedly about football. I never properly thanked you, Catherine said quietly, for my son's life. Every morning I wake up and remember that he's here because of you, because you didn't give up. Linda squeezed her hand, and my son is here because Ethan didn't give up on me. We saved each other's families, Catherine. That's what makes this so special. Catherine leaned her head on Linda's shoulder. I'm glad we found each other, even if it took something terrible to bring us together. Me too, Linda whispered. Me too. In November, when Linda received the nomination for Ohio Healthcare Worker of the Year, it was Ethan who called her first. Linda, congratulations. This is incredible. It's just a nomination, Ethan. I probably won't. You'll win. I know you'll win. And I'm going to be there cheering the loudest. The ceremony was held on November 15th. Linda wore a navy dress and sat at a table with her whole family: Marcus, Grace, Ethan, Catherine, William, Dr. Reynolds and Sarah. When they announced her name as the winner, Ethan was the first one on his feet, applauding so hard his hands hurt. Linda walked to the stage, accepted the Crystal Award, and gave her speech about 21 years of Christmas nights and the son who came home. When she mentioned Ethan, the young man whose heart stopped and who then saved my family the way I saved his, Ethan wiped tears from his eyes. After the ceremony, as they all gathered for photos, Ethan pulled Linda aside. I need to tell you something, he said seriously. You changed the trajectory of my entire life, not just by saving me physically, but by showing me what actually matters. I'm a better son now because of you. I'm a better person. Everything good in my life right now, it traces back to you. Linda touched his face gently, the way she would Marcus. And my son is home because of you, because you cared enough to help a stranger. We're connected now, Ethan, forever. Your family. Family, Ethan repeated, smiling through tears. I liked the sound of that. Marcus joined them, putting his arms around both of them. Group hug. They stood there, the three of them whose lives had collided on Christmas Eve and been forever changed, and held each other tight. That night, driving home, Linda looked at Marcus in the passenger seat and thought about the impossible chain of events that had brought them here. If Ethan hadn't had the accident, if Linda hadn't refused to give up, if Ethan hadn't seen her loneliness, if he hadn't cared enough to help. So many ifs, so many moments where things could have gone differently, but they hadn't. And now Linda had her son home, had a new extended family in the Brooks, had helped spark a movement to support healthcare workers across the country. All because she'd refused to let a stranger die on Christmas Eve. All because someone had cared enough to save her in return. What are you thinking about? Marcus asked. Linda smiled. How grateful I am for all of it, even the hard parts, because they led us here. To home, Marcus said. To home, Linda agreed. December 24th arrived with fresh snow falling on Cleveland. For the first time in 21 years, Linda Washington woke up in her own bed on Christmas Eve morning with nowhere she had to be except home. She lay there for a moment, listening. Footsteps upstairs, Marcus, already awake, the smell of coffee brewing. Someone else was making coffee. Linda smiled and pulled on her robe. Downstairs, Marcus stood in the kitchen wearing the ridiculous apron she'd bought him as a joke, flipping pancakes while Christmas music played from his phone. Good morning, Mom. Merry Christmas Eve. Merry Christmas Eve, baby. Linda hugged him from behind. You didn't have to make breakfast. I wanted to. Besides, we've got a big day. Tree decorating, remember? They'd bought a real Christmas tree 2 days ago. The first one Linda had put up in 8 years. It stood in the living room now, bare and waiting. After breakfast, they spent the morning transforming the house. Marcus strung lights while Linda unpacked ornaments she hadn't seen in years. Each one held a memory, ornaments Marcus had made in elementary school, the glass angel David had bought their first Christmas together, the MIT ornament from Marcus's graduation year. "Look at this one," Marcus said, holding up a clay handprint painted gold. "I made this in first grade." Linda touched it gently. "You were so proud of that. You made me promise to put it on the tree every year, did you? Even when I wasn't here?" Linda's eyes filled with tears. "Every year, baby, I'd put it on the tree and remember." Marcus set it carefully on a branch, front and center. Grace arrived at noon with a tin of cookies and more decorations. "My babies," she said, looking at Linda and Marcus working together, "this is what Christmas should look like." By early afternoon the house glowed with warmth and light. Garland wrapped the staircase, lights twinkled in every window, and the tree stood magnificent in the corner. Linda stood back, taking it all in. "It's beautiful." "You're crying again, Mom." Marcus teased gently. "Happy tears. These are all happy tears." At 5:30 the doorbell rang. Ethan stood on the porch with his parents, all of them carrying dishes of food. "We come bearing dinner," Ethan announced. Catherine insisted. "You've done enough cooking for a lifetime, Linda," Catherine said, hugging her. "Tonight we take care of you." Dr. Reynolds arrived next with wine and stories from the hospital. Then Sarah stopped by before her shift, the shift she'd volunteered to take so Linda could be home. "Thank you for teaching me what it really means to care," Sarah said, hugging Linda tight. "I'll take good care of everyone tonight." Linda handed her a container packed with food. "For you and the team. Merry Christmas." Sarah laughed through tears. Some things never change. By 6 o'clock, 7 people were gathered around Linda's dining room table, a table that hadn't hosted a meal this size in over a decade. They passed dishes family style, talked over each other, laughed at old stories and made new memories. Linda sat at the head of the table with Marcus on her right and Grace on her left, surrounded by family, some by blood, some by choice, all by love. After dinner, after the guests had left with full hearts and promises to do this again, Linda and Marcus cleaned up together in comfortable silence. "That was perfect," Linda said, drying the last dish. "Yeah, it was." Marcus hung up the towel, then disappeared upstairs. He came back holding a wrapped box. "This one can't wait." Linda unwrapped it carefully. Inside was the Christmas sweater, the red and green one with the ridiculous reindeer that Marcus had given her 14 years ago. "You kept it," Marcus said softly. "All these years you never wore it." "There was never the right occasion." Linda ran her fingers over the soft fabric. "Well, now there is." "Put it on, Mom." Linda pulled the sweater on over her shirt. It still fit perfectly. Marcus set up his phone on a tripod and set the timer. He stood beside his mother in front of the Christmas tree, his arm around her shoulders. "Smile, Mom." A real smile. They both smiled, genuinely happily, as the camera clicked. Later Marcus posted the photo to social media. "First Christmas home in 4 years. Worth more than any promotion or salary. Thanks, Mom, for never giving up on me, and thanks to everyone who helped me find my way home." The post got thousands of reactions within hours. People shared their own reunion stories, their own wake-up calls, their own journeys back to what mattered. At midnight, Linda and Marcus sat on the couch, watching the Christmas tree lights twinkle in the darkness. "You know what I realized," Marcus said quietly. "Coming home didn't mean giving something up. I gained everything. I gained you. I gained Sunday dinners and Saturday mornings and someone to call when something good happens or something bad happens or nothing happens at all." Linda squeezed his hand. "I'm so glad you're here." "Me too, Mom." "Me too." After a moment, Linda spoke softly. "I spent 21 years thinking I was giving up Christmas, but I wasn't. I was celebrating it differently, giving to others, being there when people needed me most. That mattered. That had value." She looked around at the decorated house, at her son beside her. "But this is beautiful too. Being able to give to others and still have something for myself. Having you here, and still being able to send food to Sarah's team at the hospital. Being home but not alone." She turned to Marcus. "I think that's what I was missing all those years. Balance. Understanding that I could serve others without losing myself. That I didn't have to choose between being a nurse and being a person. Between caring for patients and being cared for." Marcus kissed her forehead. "Well, now you have both. Now you get to live, Mom. Really live."
Linda leaned against her son's shoulder, listening to his heartbeat, feeling the warmth of the house around them, and understanding finally, completely, what home really meant. It wasn't a place you could point to on a map. It wasn't even walls and a roof and furniture. Home was this: love and presence and showing up. It was sacrificing for others without sacrificing yourself. It was being strong enough to admit when you needed help. It was having the courage to come back when you'd strayed too far. Home was family, however you built it. And Linda's family was here, whole, exactly where they needed to be. "Merry Christmas, Marcus," she whispered. "Merry Christmas, Mom." He squeezed her hand. "Welcome home." And for the first time in 21 years, Linda truly was.
Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy.